Welcome to the Fit Diet Podcast, where we'll learn the processes and habits of healthy eating, exercise, and lifestyle. Food for fitness, if you will, with the founders of MindMuscleMemory.com, Miles Beccia and Greg Rando. Miles' expertise with programs and coaching have led him to training thousands of clients all over for the last 2 decades with enormous success, and he's dedicated himself to transforming the course of fitness and health for many. And his partner Greg has his own unique skill set as a professional in the world of bodybuilding, with the ability to teach and inspire all he comes in contact with. Join me now as we discover the secrets of sticky fibers and proper habits and how to implement the mind-muscle memory lifestyle. Welcome in and thanks for listening. And welcome back to the Fit Diet Podcast with founders of the M3 Mind Muscle Memories program, Miles Beccia and Mr. Greg Rando, along with Bobby Stein, where today we are going to piggyback on last week's episode of how to gain lean muscle fast, 5 steps, and we'll piggyback on that. Gentlemen, how are you? Miles, how are you today?
Very good, Bobby.
Oh, glad to hear. You're always very good. You're such an optimist. I love that. And Greg, how are you today?
Fantastic, Bobby.
Well,
beautiful day here in sunny Florida.
It certainly is, and I wouldn't expect you to say anything less after Miles professed his greatness and how well he's doing. So we're all good then. That's good. Well, gentlemen, to once again piggyback on last week's episode, we're going to dive in a little bit today about some additional science-based information. And we want to remind everyone that the M3 sticky fiber diet is the key to finding more success than ever before with regards to well-being, physical fitness, overall well-being, and a healthy lifestyle. So we're going to jump in. Miles, I'd like to ask you first. It is science-based, and I'd like you to elaborate a little bit more about how that is so, please.
Sure. Bobby, it's funny when, you look at most things about diets and in the macronutrients that we take in, we realize that each macronutrient, protein, carbohydrates, and fats have obviously multiple components to them. There's a lot of different amino acids of protein. There's, carbohydrates come in different forms. And then fats also are, there's different types of fats, saturated, unsaturated, different ones that are healthy, of course not. But one of the big parts for the sticky fiber diet and the science behind it is that, in looking at the food label, you say, oh, well, a carbohydrate has sugar and it has dietary fiber. In fact, dietary fiber is first. It says carbohydrate has dietary fiber and has sugars. And so, that dietary fiber part has just not ever really been introduced as to what kind of benefits. And in a plant-based diet, it contains all the benefits. I mean, every item that we pick up, we want to see that underneath carbohydrates, there's some type of dietary fiber for a plant-based food because of that the dietary fiber has 2 components to it, which is not usually explained very well. One is insoluble fiber, which is roughage fiber. It doesn't break down in water. And the other is soluble or gelatinous fiber, and that breaks down in water and forms a gel. And it's in that gel that we just have so many benefits for when we're eating a plant-based diet and getting in the right amount of sticky fiber per meal.
Gotcha. And so just to elaborate, why do you suppose that when we see on labels that it's not so it doesn't, well, I guess it's a matter of space, right, and time, and ultimately money, where they kind of leave off this important information, because it's not something that we hear in the mainstream very often, is it, Greg? Where we hear about gelatinous and soluble fiber and their importance. What do you think?
No, it's true, Bobby. You're right. Lots of Americans fail to meet their daily requirements of fiber, even in combinations, whether it's the insoluble or the soluble or sticky fiber. And, personally myself, I have been focused on the macronutrients for years, just to maintain good nutrition and also to help meet my fitness goals. And through the years, I knew I wanted to have a greater variation in my foods, but also fiber always stuck out to me as something that I didn't really focus on. I was never really overly concerned with it. I knew I liked eating fruits and vegetables and had frequent salads and things like that. But at the same time, I knew that I probably wasn't taking fiber in the balance that not including the different types of fiber in the right combinations that I needed. And it took some time, but after getting familiar with the M3 eating programs and discussing with Miles over the years, I learned more about different types of fiber, how to acquire them and incorporate them into my diet, and the value of them. And it's been really significant, made significant changes in my diet.
Yeah, you would think with such a performance-enhancing element to our dietary needs, it would be more pronounced in the mainstream. But I guess at the end of the day, fellas, it really is up to us as individuals to educate ourselves on these benefits. And I, for one, was not familiar with them, and as a result, have been ingesting them at various intervals and seeing the benefits. I would also encourage folks to visit mindmusclememory.com and get the breakdown. The other feature that, in addition to being science-based, Miles, it's non-restrictive. What do you mean by non-restrictive?
Well, we really, when we talking about putting together meals, we want to, in terms of the sticky fiber diet and what we want to have for ourselves and our clients and those we take and guide and help throughout their journey is if you're looking at your plant-based foods first and your dietary fiber first, then that fills up such a large bulk of your meal that what you find is that you don't really have a lot of room left for other like lots of other bad foods, they'll say, like
so true.
Higher calorie foods and things. So when you bring in the right plant-based foods and you do add in whatever else you like. So hey, I like to have a piece of a chocolate at the end of the day, but it's not a big piece because I've already eaten such a big meal that I really can't eat a big dessert or something like that. So you can add in all kinds of other things, but when we say non-restrictive, it's also because when you have this gelatinous ball that's in your holding tank, the stomach, like we talked about last episode, and you have that ball of the bolus. It's called a bolus of food, and when you have that in your holding tank in your stomach, then your other foods you're going to add in, you can't really fit too much else in there. It has to just sit there and you steadily digest it. And so we don't really have any restrictions on saying you can't eat this, you can't eat that. Now, we don't want to go overboard on things that are unhealthy for us, that we know are unhealthy for us, that can cause inflammation in the body or things like that. But if you focus on this, you're going to find that you're not we're not restricting you to just that one, to any particular food, but that you can have the things you can have that you say, I'd like to have a little bit of that, or I'd like to have some of this in my meal.
So it kind of keeps it in check a little bit, more of a, like you say, in the bolus or the holding tank. It gives you a reserve, and you're not filling up on that stuff. And one thing I noticed drastically is it improves my digestion immensely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can find, not to get graphic or anything, but I'm so regular, and it's just
what I love about you, Bobby.
It just autopilot. Yes. But
Yep.
I think it's more like I'm on autopilot, more like nature intended. Greg, no, I don't know.
Well, Yeah, and it's true. It's very true. And I wanted to mention something else about non-restrictive because I just saw a segment on the news just the other night, and speaking of keto diet and speaking to somebody recently about the Atkins diet and those diets, and those eating programs, they are restrictive, and they actually recommend that you don't intake certain foods, so you don't incorporate certain foods into the diet. For example, grains. And
which is
grains
it's unnatural. I mean, I would. It just doesn't seem to make. It makes much sense.
It is unnatural, especially when you're talking about excluding a whole food like a grain, or and grains. Grains are one of those nutrient groups that contains a great balance and sources of both soluble and insoluble fiber. So some of these trendy faddy type diets that come and go, they really are restricted. They limit people's intake of various foods, and therefore they're changing their eating behaviors for going forward. And sometimes it's just really not. I don't see it to be very beneficial for people in the long term.
Well, I think the word fad implies that it's here today, gone tomorrow. It just doesn't have any staying power or longevity, Miles,
Well, and that's the part about non-restrictive too that I'd like to add in is that most of these, you'd say, restrictive diets or fad diets are going to end up restricting your output, restricting your muscle energy and your tone and these things, because you just can't eliminate these macronutrients like the items that have dietary fiber in them or things, because you're going to reduce the amount of energy you have for your brain, for your muscles. So I almost would say too non-restrictive, because you're going to find that you have so much energy in your muscles that you can do another 10 minutes at the end of the workout, or you can go out and recuperate very quickly and go out and do another long bike ride the next morning on the recumbent cycle bike. Or I always found, to touch back one more time on the science base, that for myself, when I first started really understanding that oatmeal has soluble fiber, which helps clean your blood of cholesterol. And we all know that cereal box or that package that says this contains oats, which helps lower cholesterol, right? So I would always go back to, I'd say, well, I would like every day, for myself, I'd like to every day have enough energy in my blood and my muscles and not have extra fat hanging out there, that I can feel like I'm energized. And geez, this oatmeal really cleans my blood, makes it move smoother through my body, and it gives me the energy to do all these other. So I'm not restricted in any type of activity I want to do. I can just get that energy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's so true. It's so
never
true.
mind cleaning, having such improvement of digestion, the passage of the food, I like to kind of call it the manufacturing system, right? The energy manufacturing system in our body. It's got to go through into those 4 stages of digestion: stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and colon. And it's got to be processed. And boy, that gives you improving that digestion, improving that system, like you talked about earlier, is just going to give you so much energy. You're not going to be restricted in your movements and your energy levels for your workouts and doing all the things you want to do.
Yeah, I think the other thing, excuse me, I think one of the other things is when you restrict your diet from a physical standpoint, and part of the reason why it becomes trendy or fad, like a fatty diet, not fatty, but like a fad diet, is it restricts it restricts that manufacturing plant from the neck up. So you kind of become restricted in the mental game. So we may have short-term successes, and we may realize some